Hey now, Brawlers, it's time for another Board Game Brawl review with Nick Minahan, sponsored by BoardGameBliss.com. Hey peeps, today we're going to take a look at the newest expansion for Legendary, a Marvel deck building game. That is the X-Men set. It's just called X-Men. It is a big box expansion, though it is not a standalone expansion. You will need one of the core sets in order to play it, but it's akin to either the Civil War set or the Secret Wars sets, where there's just a ton of stuff for you to add to the existing game. And of course, as the name implies, they are all somehow X-Men related. Now, most of the X-Men's major core X-Men have already been in the game, sometimes in various incarnations like Wolverine, but this one has, to be kind, we'll say the fringe characters from the X-Men sector of the Marvel Universe. Characters from Alpha Flight and X-Factor, the New Mutants, who at times have also been X-Men as well, so they're kind of going, let's say, deep, the deep cuts of the X-Men universe. But there's like 15 new heroes, 6 new masterminds, new villain groups, new henchmen, new game mechanics, lots and lots of new stuff in this one. It's actually interesting because this is part, I don't know if this is just a coincidence of the timing, but it seems that this is all together of an initiative that Marvel is doing to revitalize the X-Men franchise after purposefully abusing and neglecting it because of its relationship with Fox and the movie rights and all that stuff. The mobile game that I play all the time, Marvel Future Fight, we never believed that we would ever get any of the mutants, and they just did an X-Men update. So I guess this is all tying in together. Legendary never had that problem, but because they've always had the X-Men to some degree or another. But like I said, now they're really getting deep into it. So let me go ahead and give you a brief look at everything that comes in this expansion. Then we'll come back. I'll let you know what I think. Legendary X-Men is the newest big box expansion for Legendary, a Marvel deck building game. You need either the original Legendary set or the Legendary Villain set to be able to play, and technically this is compatible with the Legendary Encounters games. As the name implies, everything in this set is somehow related to the X-Men and their various spin-off teams, mostly their spin-off teams. I'll go over the new gameplay elements in a moment, but first I'll quickly go through all of the new heroes, villains, masterminds, etc. There are 15 new heroes, including Aurora and Northstar, wait, what the fuck? Banshee, Beast, Cannonball, Colossus and Wolverine, Dazzler, Havoc, Jubilee, Kitty Pryde, wait, what the fuck? Legion, Longshot, Phoenix, Polaris, Psylocke, and X-23. There are 6 new masterminds, each of which also has a brutally difficult epic side. There's Arcade, Dark Phoenix, Deathbird, Mojo, Onslaught, and Shadow King. There are 7 new villain groups: the Dark Descendants, the Hellfire Club, Shadow X, the Shi'ar Imperial Guard, the Sisterhood of Mutants, the Mojoverse, and Murder World. There are 5 new henchman villains, including the Brood, the Hellfire Cult, the Sapien League, Shi'ar Death Commandos, and Shi'ar Patrolcraft. There are 8 new schemes for the Mastermind, including Alien Brood Encounters, Anti-Mutant Hate... Oh, enough of this. There are several brand new gameplay mechanisms in this set. We'll start with the hero stuff. Actually, one of the abilities is returning from the Civil War set. Divided cards have 2 miniature cards printed on them side by side. They're purchased like any other card, but when played, you only use one side of the card, of your choice, and completely ignore the other side like it doesn't even exist. X-Gene abilities activate if you have a card in your discard pile that matches the indicated class symbol. Heroes with soaring flight, when recruited from the lineup, are set aside instead of being put in your discard pile. Then they're added to your new hand at the end of the turn as an extra card. Some cards have abilities marked as Light Show. These do not activate automatically. Rather, if you play at least 2 cards that have Light Show abilities, you may activate one of those abilities. Playing more than 2 doesn't give you more uses. Berserk can give you extra combat power, but it's random. If you play a card with Berserk, you discard the top card of your deck, and if it has combat value, you gain that combat immediately. Some cards have multiple Berserks, so you'll discard multiple cards and potentially gain much more combat. There are new bystander cards, the new mutants, and some highly skilled, boring normies that actually become heroes and go into your deck after being rescued, complete with classes and affiliations. Finally, for heroes, Piercing Energy is actually a brand new type of currency in the game, complete with its own icon. You accrue this energy to use against villains and masterminds, but the difference is that you only need an amount equal to the villain or mastermind's victory point value, and you automatically defeat them. Not only does this bypass combat, it ignores all combat modifiers and protective effects on the villain or mastermind. Speaking of which, your enemies also have new abilities to use against you in this set. Villains can now take human shields as an ambush ability. That means they'll capture 2 bystanders from the stack face down. So long as it has these human shields, you cannot attack it. You'll have to spend combat equal to the villain's combat value to rescue one of the shields at random. When they're all gone, anyone can attack it freely. Some villains can dominate hero cards from various places, including the lineup and even players' hands. When they do so, the hero cards are put under the villain, and each one gives the villain +1 combat value. Whoever defeated the villain takes the dominated heroes and puts 1 in each player's discard pile, including their own. Some players might not get one, and if there are too many, the excess heroes are KO'd. Villains have 2 brand new cards to use. Traps are in villain groups and are put in the deck like the other cards, but when drawn, they do not enter the city. Rather, they're set aside as a special challenge. If you can meet the condition by the end of the turn, you take the card as points. Otherwise, you'll have to suffer the negative consequences of it, and then the trap just gets KO'd. Horrors are new cards that will brutalize the players with their effects. You can optionally use these just to boost the difficulty, but epic masterminds will also tell you to include these automatically. Finally, the X-Men set gives you some token cards that are only used when brought out by main cards, which I just found slightly interesting and worth mentioning. That's the Legendary X-Men set. Well, I like this set a lot. I mean, come on, it's Marvel Legendary. It's one of my top 5 favorite games. So, of course, it's going to take a lot for me to not like it. But I like some sets more or less than others, and I think this is one of the good ones. And in the grand hierarchy of the big box sets, I still think like Dark City, even though that was the first big box expansion, it's been a long time since that came out, it's still kind of the best one. Although at times I think maybe one of the Secret, I can't remember which one, but one of the 2 Secret War sets I like almost the same or maybe even a little bit more than Dark City, but I'd still recommend Dark City to newcomers. And I think this set is better than Civil War, which Civil War had a lot of things I just didn't really like and wasn't interested in very much, and it's based off one of my least favorite Marvel storylines. So this is a good set. Now, there's some things I don't like about it, and I actually think that this set's biggest problem is, I don't know, for lack of a better word, the theming of it. I mean, X-Men's great, fantastic, but again, as I mentioned in the intro, these are really the fringe X-Men characters. They are really scraping the bottom of the mutant barrel. Oh my god, is that racist to say? Oh, I'll cut that out in post. Nick, cut this out now. Okay. So yeah, there's not a lot of really popular X-Men in this set, but it's just fine because we've already got all of those. And a couple of the ones I would have been genuinely interested in, like Kitty Pryde, because obviously I'm a Kitty Pryde fan, and Lockheed, which is great. Lockheed on the cards. They have really terrible artwork in this set. There's some art in this set that's fine, and some of it's really good. And there's some that's just really bad. And that is really bad. Aurora and North Star are really bad, and they crammed them together on the same hero cards, because I guess that's how it is in the comics. They're always together. And they they did the Wolverine and Colossus as just one hero, And I know they just did that because they needed some excuse to have a fastball special card, and that's fine. But it does just signal to me that they didn't really have a lot of content to work with for this set. But still, there's so much content, and I think the best thing about this expansion are the new mechanisms. And that's not something I can say with every set. Sometimes I like a set just because a lot of my favorite heroes are in it. I would say that with at least one of the Secret Wars sets. But this time, it's the gameplay that really is going to the forefront and making me really like this set. So, some of the new powers are reminiscent of older ones, like what's the Soaring Flight is very similar to, or reminds me of Wall Crawl. I know it doesn't work exactly the same Wall Crawl. I think it's actually worse, kind of. You buy it and it goes on the top of your deck as opposed to Soaring Flight goes into your hand, something like that. But it's reminiscent of that, and there's also Light Show. Feels very similar to powers that I've seen in the past, but I like them. I mean, that's a good thing. And also, what I really enjoyed were Piercing Energy. Piercing Energy, it's always risky when you add a new currency into a deck building game, but this one doesn't really break the game that badly, and it's really great, and more importantly, it gives you decisions to make, because Piercing Energy could be good, but only if you've got a lot of it. And you have to make that decision. Well, am I going to go Piercing Energy? Well, actually, no. You don't need a ton of Piercing Energy, but not every card is going to have it. So now you're whereas Combat and Recruitment are plentiful. So now you've always got that dichotomy of how much Recruitment do I need in the beginning? When do I make the switch to getting a lot of Combat? Now you have another decision to make if you use the cards that have Piercing Energy, like Psylocke and Banshee. And you say, like, well, I could go for this too. But do I now ignore Combat? What if I don't see a lot of Piercing Energy cards? What if, again, in the common legendary thing, what if everyone's buying them? And then it becomes kind of a big deal, because the highest I think the Piercing Energy cards go to is 4, and that will take out a lot of things, but it's not going to take out everything as far as the victory point total goes. So I love that decision making. I'm not saying it's a bad thing. It's a great thing. I think it's a very interesting foil in the game. The villain abilities are fine. I think Human Shield doesn't really wow me that much. Dominating can be very frustrating, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. I think that, I think the villains probably got the shaft in this set, but not in a really, really bad way. There's tons of them. I mean, I love that there's 6 Masterminds. I don't really care about the epic side, because that's a pretty good spread of Masterminds. If you just want a challenge, play against Onslaught or Dark Phoenix. If you don't, play against Mojoverse or Mojo or Arcade. Which I haven't played. I played with all of them, but I haven't played enough with them to tell you for sure that they're always going to be easier or harder on one end of the spectrum or another, but that's how it felt like to me. So my point being, even if this is your only expansion set, you've got enough of a spread of difficulty there. I don't think you need to, like, brutalize yourself by playing on the epic side, which is, like, beyond the pale of difficulty. I'll never turn down the chance to use an XCOM analogy. It's like going from normal mode in XCOM to classic mode, which is just one step above, but is this much of a step in difficulty. I'm getting brutalized in XCOM right now, so I have to vent. So I could take or leave that stuff, but it's fine that it's there. Again, the biggest thing with I was about to say XCOM. The biggest thing with Legendary is that you want more variety. And this gives, even if this is the only expansion set that you buy, all you have is one of the core sets in this. It would be weird if you bought the villain set first and then got this. You would have so much content and so much good stuff because of how many good gameplay elements are here. Man, I didn't even cover some of the other stuff. I mean, I love the bystanders that become heroes. That's great. It makes me sad that we may never see a new mutant set because apparently they're just relegating them to hero bystanders, but it's a great mechanism. That's the thing. There's, my problem with this set, and it's not a huge problem, definitely not enough for me to not recommend this, is the theming of it and how they decided to implement that. But the gameplay elements are great for the most part. So, yes, if you are a fan of Legendary, this is a must-buy. If you're, new to the Legendary universe, I don't know if this is the first set I'd tell you to get, but it should be on your radar. Especially if you are a hardcore fan of X-Men, to the point where you want to get all of the X-Men, like the Pokemons, like the Pokemans. So that is the X-Men set for Marvel Legendary. Check it out. Thanks for watching. Follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Patreon. And make sure to check out our sponsor, Board Game Bliss, where you can find an amazing selection of games from around the world. BoardGameBliss.com. Thanks for your support.